Now, it's becoming a major battleground for rival superpowers. The race is on to secure dominance of the world's supply of computer chips. A global shortage of semiconductors has shown how important they are to the global economy, and the US is determined to take control.
Xu Yi is a co-founder of QC82. It's a small startup birthed from the labs of the University of Virginia in the US. They're developing cutting-edge semiconductors, also called chips.
The red box, that's actually the laser that drives the entire system. Okay? And then inside this chamber, okay, environmental chamber, there's a very small chip. The cool thing is that everything here is at room temperature. And other than the chip, you don't need anything.
Xu Yi works with Hussein Zaidi, the CEO of QC82. Zaidi says QC82's chips may be microscopic, but can have a big impact. That's because they'll be used for quantum computers. These computers can do things like simulate the movement of atoms and molecules. This can help lower the cost and speed of manufacturing drugs. But much of the work that Hussein, Xu Yi, and the rest of the QC82 team does is theoretical, and it can be hard for a startup that's so future-focused to get funding.
Resource-intensive, initially time, money, labor-intensive in the beginning, but it also leads to much more scalable technology that has much more longevity.
But their vision may be getting more support, thanks to the CHIPS and Science Act. It's a $280 billion technology package designed to grow the chips and high-tech industry in the United States.
The thing is, though the act was signed into law in August of last year, funding hasn't actually been drawn down yet. But it's still driving interest and investment in small semiconductor startups run out of research institutions, just like QC82.
Richard Chilla works on funding for many young high-tech startups.
Suddenly, we have companies whose technology is related to the semiconductor industry, and suddenly they're finding a lot more investors wanting to talk with them, interested about having conversations with them about funding their next round of technologies.
The CHIPS and Science Act is already bringing in $200 billion worth of private investment to the industry. That's according to the U.S. Semiconductor Industry Association.
Semiconductor factories in Syracuse, New York. Intel is investing $20 billion to do the same in Ohio.
The QC82 team produced their first chip prototype without billions of dollars. It's an accomplishment that they're proud of, regardless of what might come.
You're literally pushing the unknown a little bit further. It's like, of course, we want to, make the quantum computing work eventually. Even if it doesn't happen, as long as we push the technology to what human being can possibly push it to.
If it does work, Xu Yi, Hussein, and the rest of the QC82 team want to take things even further. One day, they hope to design their entire range of products from start to finish on U.S. soil. That is, if the CHIPS and Science Act delivers on its promise.
Well, let's dig a bit deeper into the global chips race and speak to Richard Gordon, who is semiconductors and electronics lead at the consultancy Gartner. It's great to have you on the programme, Richard. Semiconductors have become a major focus of competition between superpowers, haven't they now? Why exactly is that, though?
Yeah, governments around the world have realised that semiconductors are critical to the global economy and are actually becoming a national security issue. So what's going on at the moment with the industry from a strategic point of view is that the globalized nature of the industry is kind of unraveling, and it's being rebuilt along sort of techno-nationalism lines. So each power block, if you like, the US, Europe, China, etc., are all trying to redevelop their semiconductor industries on a more kind of domestic or nationalized basis.
We're hearing how the US is investing hundreds of billions of dollars into boosting its domestic semiconductor industry over the next few years. I mean, its main global rival these days is China, of course. How's China going to respond to that sort of spending?
Yeah, this is probably the most critical or interesting thing in the industry right now is how the the semiconductor industry investment and technology roadmap is going to play out. Up to now, it's been, as I said before, fairly globalized, but the US is trying to regain technology leadership over China and trying to restrict technology into China. So China has a couple of things it can do. First of all, in the short term, it can invest in legacy technology where the US is not restricting access. And longer term, it can develop its own leading edge technology. That's a much bigger challenge. There are some particular critical pieces of equipment that China needs to have access to or to develop itself. And that's going to take a long time, 10, 15, 20 years to develop that domestic capability for China.
So the tasks ahead for the US and China are actually very different, aren't they? The semiconductor shortage that we've seen as a result of the coronavirus pandemic is the reason why they've realised that it's so important to have a reliable supply of semiconductors, isn't it? Is that semiconductor shortage going to continue through 2023, or are we nearing the end of it now?
Yeah, this gets to where we are in the industry cycle. And as you mentioned, the last couple of years we've seen shortages. The semiconductor industry grew very strongly in 2021 from a revenue perspective. This last year, 2022, that growth is slowing down rapidly. The chip shortage is resolving. I wouldn't say it's completely resolved yet. There's still a couple of chips that are slightly problematic from a lead time and availability perspective, but it is resolving. And the industry this year, 2023, will actually decline in revenue terms. And that actually is quite an interesting, from a timing point of view, we talk about all this money being thrown at the industry by governments, but the industry isn't ready to invest it yet in capacity because of where we are in the cycle. So we'll probably see them backpedaling a bit or being less aggressive on capacity additions until the industry kind of gets back into equilibrium from a supply-demand perspective. As we know, the global economy is heading into recession,
Indeed.
so that's having an effect on demand.
Yeah, so the money's coming, but the makers aren't necessarily ready for it just yet. Well, Richard Gordon from Gartner, it's been very interesting speaking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.